Okay, Shalom Aleichem everyone. So we're going to start where we left off yesterday. We were on the bottom of that Zayin Omid Beis, and we started the Gemaras that were talking the after Bizakai B'ma Harachto Yomim, and he was saying certain things that he did b'midas Chasidus more than the Iker Hadin. The one that we learned yesterday was that he was not mashtin mayim b'toich arba amois shel tefillah, even though al pi halacha we said it's mutter, but he was machmar on himself not to be mashtin mayim b'toich arba amois shel tefillah. Then we had some other ones of being makbid on wine for Kiddush Hayoim. And today we're going to continue with that Gemara. We're holding 3 lines up from the bottom. Shalu Talmidav Esrablaza ben Shamoya. B'ma Rachta Yomim. Omalahem, again, 3 Hanhogas of Chasidus. Miyomai lo yasisi kapandaria lebeis HaKnesses. I didn't make a Beis HaKnesses a shortcut. And the Rishonim explained that to make a Beis HaKnesses a shortcut, to go from one door and go out the other door to shorten his way is be'etzem asim in adin, like the Gemara says in Seches Brachas. And over here it means even if there was a reason why it should be mutter meikar adin, let's say there was a shvil over there before the Beis HaKnesses expanded. So then once the Beis HaKnesses expands mitzad hadin, since there was a way to walk there before the Beis HaKnesses expands, it would be mutter. Still mitzad Chasidus, he never made it a shortcut to the Beis HaKnesses, even in a case that it would be mutter mitzad hadin. Pasati al Roshi Am Kodesh. I didn't literally means I didn't step on the heads of Am Kodesh, which Rashi explains means that if he would come in and all the Talmidim are already sitting in their seats, al gabi karka, and then he starts stepping around them trying to get to his seat, so sort of he's considered like he's stepping, it looks as if he's stepping on their heads. Now, although it's not literal, but it means that he's being matriach the people in order for him to get to his seat, so he wouldn't do that. He would come in earlier, or sit in a place where it wouldn't disturb other people. So he didn't bother people to get up or to move around as he was trying to get to his seat. I didn't duchen without making a bracha. I'm not sure over here what Chasidus is. In other words, Meikar Adin L'chayr, he needs a bracha. I'm not sure why over here it's only a Chasidus. And weiter, Shalu Tamina Veser Predo. We prayed b'ma harachta yomim. Why we use tarichas yomim? And Toysus points out that this Rabbi Predo is famous for having taught one Talmud 400 times, and then he forgot it, and then he taught him again 400 times, and for that he was zeicha. They asked him in Hashemayim what schar he would want, either that he should have arichas yomim, or that him and his whole generation would be zeicha the Chayei Olam Haba. And he picked that him and his whole generation should be zeicha l'chayei olam haba. And they said min hashamayim that since he picked that, so they're going to give him both things, also arichas yomim, and also that him and his generation are going to be zeicha l'chayei olam haba. But Repreda himself thought that he picked the one of having chayei olam haba. So he didn't know that the arichas yomim was because of that, and he attributed the arichas yomim to the things that we're going to see over here. So Shalu Talmidim said, "We prayed with Ma'arach to Yomim Amalahem, Mi Yomim Lekadmuni Adam LeBeis HaMedrash." No one ever came before me to the Beis HaMedrash. In other words, he was there early in the morning. I didn't have. The Gemara is going to explain these things. I didn't say a bracha of a suuda when it came to bench. I didn't bench if there was a kohen there. Lefnei kohen. I didn't eat from a behema, which they didn't take off the matanos. Everyone knows that from a behema, when you sheikh al behema, so there's certain matanos that have to be given to the kohen, the zroya, the choyayim, and the keva. And I didn't eat from the behema before they would be mafresh the matanos. The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, also lechal mi behema, shleihumu matanos. You're not allowed to eat the meat of the behema before you take off the matanos. If someone eats from a behema, it's as if he eats the peiros before taking off the trumas umaisis. But the less hilchas say, the halacha is not like Rabbi Yitzchak. In other words, unlike trumas umaisis, that one cannot eat the peiros until he takes off the trumas umaisis. By a behema, the halacha really is that he can eat the basa even though he didn't take off yet the Zraya l'chayayim v'keva. First he's going to eat, and when he finishes eating, then he'll give the Zraya l'chayayim v'keva. He'll take it off to give it to the kohen. That's really the halacha. But he was machmir on himself, like the shita, not to eat from the behema until he actually takes off the matanos. So he first took off the matanos and then he ate from the behema. Now the Gemara questions the second anoga that we said, That he wasn't mevarich if there was a kohen sitting there, and he gave the kohen to be mevarich. He was mechaber the kohen with the bracha of Hamazon. So the Gemara says, "Lamemr de mal yusi." That's a shevach. Rabbi Preda was a talmid chacham. V'amar v'yochanan kol talmid chacham. Any talmid chacham shemavarich lefanov afilu kohen gadol am aretz, kohen which is an am aretz, even if he's the kohen gadol. If the talmid chacham lets the kohen be mevarich before him, in other words, that the kohen should be mevarich and not the talmid chacham, or is the talmid chacham chayav misa because he's making cheap the gadlus of a talmid chacham by letting the kohen bench instead of him. Shenema kol misanai ahavu maves. The ones the drash is both from Pashto means misanai, the ones who hate me. But the Gemara, the drash is al tikri misanai elamasniai, those who make it being hated. In other words, those who show that there was no chashivas for the Torah, that's ohavu maves. So if a talmid chacham is sitting in a suda and there's also a kohen, even a kohen gadol amaretz, if the talmid chacham lets the kohen gadol amaretz be mevarach in front of him, so he's showing that the Torah doesn't have so much of a chashivas. So that would be b'chlal komasanai, which the Gemara dashes komasniya yahavu maves. So why did Rabbi Preda say that that's a megillah, that he didn't let the kohen, that he didn't bench when there was a kohen there? He should have taken birchas hamazon because he was the talmid chacham. So the Gemara says kui kamar iu b'shaven, when they were equal. So Tosfos explains it doesn't mean, in other words, that the kohen was also a talmid chacham. Not only Rabbi Preda was a talmid chacham, but also the kohen was a talmid chacham. And Tosfos explains it doesn't mean that they were mamish shavin, that the kohen was as much as a talmid chacham as Rabbi Preda, because if he was the exact same dark of a talmid chacham, then of course he should give it rather to the kohen. But over here it means that he was a talmid chacham, not as great of a talmid chacham as Rabbi Preda, but he was also a talmid chacham. And then it's not considered that he's making cheap the Torah because he's also being mechabe the talmid chacham to be mevarach b'chas hamazon. In addition to the fact that he was a kohen, so that was a midas chasidus that Rabbi Preda gave it to the kohen always to be mevarach, as long as the kohen was a shtickle talmid chacham. So that's a third hanhaga that Rabbi Preda had that b'schutza he was marach yamim. Shalu talmidav es Ibn Chunya ben Hakono b'maharachta yamim, with what you were zoichet to harichas yamim. Amalahem miyomai loinis chabadati bekloin chaverai. I never increased my covet with my chavers, with my friends. Koloin, embarrassment. The Gemara is going to explain exactly what that means. Like we're going to see that before he went to sleep, he was meichel anyone who did anything bad to him, anyone who was mekalil him, or anyone who did anything bad to him. And also the third anaga was vatern b'mamrini hayisi. I was a vatern when it came to my money. So the Gemara now is going to explain all three anagas. Loinis chabadati bekaloin chaverai. I wasn't chabed myself with my friend's embarrassment. What would that mean? Ki hadar avuna. I was going to say a mashal of what that would be. Rav Huna Dori Mora. Rav Huna was carrying a ma'ader, which he used to work the fields, a katfe on his shoulder. Also, Rav Chonabach Haneloi. We had the Chonabach Haneloi and Rav Huna just on the daf before. Rav Chonabach Haneloi was the rav of the smaller town. And Rav Chonabach Haneloi comes and he sees Rav Huna carrying the mora, the ma'ader on his shoulder. Because Dori Mine, he took it off. He said, I'll carry it. Amal Eser, Avuna told him, if you rogel, if you usually carry these kind of things in your town, then Dori, then you can carry it. But V'iloi, if you usually wouldn't carry something like this in your town, then it's Yakuri Ano, that I should have more covered. Bizilusa didach al yedei, that you're going to have embarrassment. Loy nichali. That's called that amiskabed bekilalas chaverai. Abuna was saying that if he's going to have more cover, that he won't have to carry the ma'ader al yedei, the embarrassment of lachon b'chaniloi. That's considered to be miskabed bekaloin chaverai. And over here, Mechoni ben Akona was saying that I never did that. I was doing kabadati bekaloin chaverai. That was one of the anhogas why he was zeicha farichas yamim. The second anaga was the Gemara explains Ki Hada Marzutra Ki Havisolik Lapuria, when he was going to sleep. Omar Sharile Amoichel Lakolman de Tzaram, to anyone who was Tzarmi. So again, he didn't go to sleep. In other words, Osal Mitasi, I wouldn't go up to bed with Kilalas Chaverai, with the wrongdoings of someone else. The third another was Vatron b'memoini hoyisi. I was Vatron. I was mevater. I lenient. Not sure the word. I was mevater my money. The Omar Mar Iyov Vatron b'memoini havo. Iyov was a big tzaddik. He was Vatron b'memoini havo. She'eminiach pruti lechemveni memoini. When he would buy from the chemveni, he would give extra pruta, a small matbeya, to the chemveni, and he wouldn't cheshbon with him up to the last penny. And that's considered a maila that he was Vatron b'memoini. So those three anhogas were of Nechunya ben Hakon. Shoal Rabbi Akiva, as from Nechunya Hagodol. Some say it's also Nechunya ben Hakon or it's someone else. So Akiva asked from Nechunya Hagodol, L'ma rachta yomim. What were you zeicha for such arichas yomim? Osi gavzi. So the shoitrim came. In other words, Nechunya Hagodol's people. They thought that Rabbi Akiva was not so happy that he was living so long. That's why he's asking him, L'ma rachta yomim. And they started hitting him. Salak Akiva jumped up. Yosef Arisha, the dikla, he sat on top of the tree. And from the top of the tree, he came down. Amalei Rebbe, he wanted to show that he was a Talmud Chacham and he wasn't just upset that the Rabbanim are living so long. So he tells him a drash. He says, in Nema Keves, by the Talmud Shel Shachar, Talmud Shel Bina Abayim, it says, as a Keves echot tase baboiker. So he says, in Nema Keves, it says, as a Keves tase baboiker. Loma Nema echot. Why does it have to say, as a Keves echot tase baboiker? And some say that he already answered the teretz was miyuchot shebedroi. Others say that on the question itself, he understood that he's a Talmud Chacham, that he's medayik in the psukim, that he says keves. Why does it say echad? Amalahu, some Nechunya told the people, the shoitrim, tzum mirabbananu. He's a Talmud Chacham. Shavku, leave him. Amalei. So first he answered the shaila why it says it's a keves echad, and he told him echad doesn't mean just one. It means miyuchot shebedroi. As I said, that some Gersoyas have that Kiva himself said this drash, that in Nema Keves Loma Nema Echot, to tell you that it's Miyuchot Shebedroi, the special one from his flock, that you should give the good things for Karbanos, and from there Nechunya saw that he was a Tzum Rabbanah. So then he answered his shiloh that he asked him. Kiva asked him, "B'ma rachta yomim? Amalei miyomai lo kibalti matonos." I was never accepted gifts. Lo yamadti al midoisai. We're going to see soon. He was Mavir al Midoisai. He wasn't. Rashi says he wasn't Amanti al Midoisai to pay back bad to someone who was Mitzayim. And also Vatim bebemoini hoyisi. Loiki balti matonis. I didn't accept matonis ki hoder blazar. Like a blazar also we find didn't accept the matonis. Having meshadruli matonis when they would send the matonis mibin siya from the Nasi's house. Lo yav shokol. He wouldn't take. And also ki having mazmanile when they would invite him to eat. He wouldn't go to eat the sudas by them. Amalu, he would tell them, you don't want that I shall live. Reb Zera, they had a little bit of a different anhalga. When they would send the matonis from the Bein Asiyah, he would not accept it because but when they would invite him to come eat, he would go. Omar, over here, it's not that I'm the one who's accepting the matana. I'm giving them isyakure the misyakru bi. They are having more covered when I come. Isyakure the misyakru bi. They are being mechabe themselves with my covered of my being there. So my going to the suda, it's not that they're doing me a favor by giving me the food, rather I'm doing them a favor by going. So that he would do. But to take the matanis, he wouldn't take again because we saw soine matanis yichya. So that was the first midah of Nechunya Haggadah. Another midah was v'lo yamadeti al midoisai. I didn't stand on my midos, to say on my measurements that I should do to someone else exactly what he did to me. The Amar Rava kol hamavir al midoisav, someone who goes who's mavir al midoisav, he's mavater on his midos. He doesn't pay back to other people exactly what they did to him. Mavir mimenu kol pshav. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu also is mavir for his averos, because it's minadin that someone who doesn't pay back to other people for all the bad that was done to him, so it's minadin that even if he does sometimes some averos, it shouldn't be paid back to him kafi his averos, just to be mevater to him also to be mavir al midosav. Shenemar, at the telling the pasuk noisei avein v'oiver al pesha. The midas of Hakadosh Baruch Hu is that he's noisei avein and oiver al pesha. And the Gemara darshans lami noisei avein. To who is Hakadosh Baruch Hu noisei avein takes away the avonos? Lamisha oiver al pesha. Someone who's oiver on the pshoim that are done to him. That's the drash. So that's again the three hanhogas that he had was lokibalti matonois, not loyamati al midoisai, and vatrim b'momini yoyisi we already explained before. Shal Rebbe as Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha. Rebbe asked Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha v'maharachta yomim. How you zeicha tarichas yomim? Amalei, so he told him what? Katzta b'chayai. You're not happy that I'm living so long. One says Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha that very long arichas yomim. So he said, you're not happy that I'm living so long. That you asked me why was I zeicha for such arichas yomim? I'm like, no, Rebbe, Torah, I want to know what's the right on Hoggetz. So he told him, I was never mistaken. I never looked, or I never, not just saw, but looked the kavana for a long time. Kiveka brings the b'dmus adam rasha. Damar Rabbi Yochanan, also the histakel b'dmus adam rasha. Shenema, as it says by Elisha says. By Yehoram Melech Yisrael, he says, "Lulei pnei Yeshafat Melech Yehuda ani noisei." If not, that I would be being noisei pnei. They came together, the war of Yehoram Melech Yisrael and Yeshafat Melech Yehuda. If not, that I would be taking also Yeshafat Melech Yehuda. Im abit elecha, if I would look at you, ve'im areko. Someone who's mistakel b'fnei Rasha, ein of chaos, his eyes become shvach, become weak. He was blind. Shenema, as it says, "Vayiki zokein Yitzchak." And his eyes became weak from seeing. And the Gemara Darshans, the Marshal explains that the Drash is that Vatechena Einov, it would have just said Vatechena Einov, that his eyes became weak. Of course, it means from seeing. That's what eyes do. But it means Meira Ois, because of seeing. Which seeing was that the seeing, something was Gurim, that it should be Vatechena Einov. Which seeing, Mishum de Estakel, Be'esav Harash. So the Gemara asks, V'ha Garmalei, looking at Esav Harasha, that was what was good him, that his eyes should become weak. The klala, even from a simple person, should not be light in your eyes. Sharei Avimelech, Melech Plishtim, Kila lesara, Beniskayim bezara, where Sheneba Hinehu Lach Ksus Einayim. Which by Boy from Pashat, he was saying a good thing that Avram Avinu, which is Sarah's husband, is loch ksus einayim, the cover for the eyes. But al tikri ksus einayim like kisiyas einayim, sort of like covering over the eyes in a way that you can't see. And it was neskayim bizarro that Yitzchok Taka, his eyes became weak, that he couldn't see. So it's because of Avimelech's klala, not because he was mistakel with Nei Esav Arasha. So the Gemara says, Havaha Gormalei. That's what Evan explains, that just because it was Klodos of Avimelech, it's not a reason that it should be Neskayim B'Yitzchok. But because there was also a mocking that he was mistakel b'fnei Esav Arasha, so that was good, that the Klod of Avimelech should be chal on him, and it should be Ksiyas Einayim that he should not see. Rava Mameyacha, the drasha of mistakel b'fnei Adam Rasha, from here, Se'ez Pnei Rasha Loitoiv. The Se'ez, that means being noisy upon him, to look. Pnei Rasha is not good. B'shas Petirosai Amalei, so Rebbe told Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha, Rebbe Barcheni, Amalei, he told him, Yirotzain Shetagia Lechatzi Yomai, that you shall live to half of my age. So he told him, well, the Kulu Loi, you shouldn't live I should only live half of your age, not the whole age, not as much years as you live. Amalei, so he told Rebbe, you're the Nasi. So the ones, so it's not just that you're living long. The Haboim Acharecha, your children who come after you, Behemo Yiru, they should just be a shepherd for the animals. You want them also to have a chashivas and to be nasir. And that's why it's not good for him to live too long, so that his kids should also have something. Avua bar ihi, umin yamin bar ihi, two amiroim. Chad Amar Teisili, it's good for me. The lo yistakel begoy. I never looked at kuti. It says it means goy. I never was mistakel b'fnei of a goy. Bechad Amar Teisili, the lo avdi shutfus behadei goy. I never made a shutfus with a goy. And Tesis explains, even in a case that it wouldn't come out that he should have to make a shvua L'shem avodah zara, that perhaps is even asur min adin, even if I'm going to be mevater for him to make a shvua, so he won't be masged l'shem avodah zara. Even so, I never made a shutvus with a goy. That's considered a midas chasidus. Shalu talmidav es Rabbi Zera b'ma harachta yomim. Amalem b'yomai lo hikpadeti b'toich beisi. I was never makbid. I never. How do you say this in English? I don't know. I was never makbid. I never got angry. B'toich beisi, even b'toich beisi. Kolshke not outside. V'lo yitza'adeti. I didn't walk b'fnei mi shegadol mimeni. Someone who was greater than me, I didn't walk ahead of him. V'lo herharti. I was not maharher. B'divrei Torah, b'mavois hamatonofos, in alleyways and places where you're not supposed to be mahar b'divrei Torah. Even if according to halacha, he also may be like Rabbi Yochanan that according to halacha you're allowed to be mahar here b'divrei Torah, just not to talk divrei Torah. But he was makbid on himself, even not to think, not to be mahar here b'divrei Torah. V'lo yalachti arba amos b'lo Torah b'lo tefillin. I didn't walk arba amos without talking divrei Torah, thinking divrei Torah, and without wearing tefillin. I didn't sleep in the Beis Hamedrash. Even though, so we'll see later on the Beis, perhaps that's mutter al pi halacha. He was machmer on himself not to be. He never slept in a Beis Hamedrash. Not shinas keva, not shinas arai. I wasn't happy. When my friend stumbled, his friend stumbled, so he could be happy because now he looks choshever. So he was never happy. But the kolas chavirai, but the karosi lechavirai b'chanichosoi v'amri lo b'chachinosoi. Two gersoy. Some switch it over here. One means a nickname. That's like a chanichosoi, and that's chachinosoi is the way they mechane him. And others say even chanichosoi, which is the way a nickname that already traveled, that he has already for a long time. He was kilu mischanech with it. Still, I didn't call him by his nickname. I called him by his real name. So those are hanhogas that Reb Zera said that's why he was marich yom. And with that, we finished this sugya and we continued to the Mishnah back to Hilchas Beis HaKnesses. V'yoid Amar Rabbi Yehuda. The Rishonim over here, much of what's exactly the V'oid Amar Rabbi Yehuda. We had Rabbi Yehuda that said before that Moiche Noisel Hashem, that a Beis HaKnesses Moiche Noisel Hashem Chotzer, Ba'aloikeach Ma Sheyirtze Yaseh. So they explained that even Rabbi Yehuda that says not Toyses, this is the Rashba, that even the Rabbi Yehuda that says that Moiche Noisel Hashem Chotzer, he sorry. Even Rabbi Yehuda that said Moiche Noisel Hashem Chotzer, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. That even Yehuda that says Moiche Noisel Hashem Chotzer, he agreed that while there was a Beis HaKnesses, you're not allowed to use it for certain tashmishim, mevuzim. And now Yehuda is going to continue that not only while it's a Beis HaKnesses, but even when it's chorev, as long as you didn't sell it, you can't use it for tashmish mevuzim. Oidam Rabbi Yehuda, Beis HaKnesses shechorav, Beis HaKnesses which was destroyed, ein maspidin b'toichoi. You cannot be maspid. You just use it as a big ulam to make a spadim in it. Mafshilim b'toicha chavalim. Mafshilim chavalim is just to make ropes, make strings, which you would need a very big space, and that's why a person would go into a Beis HaKnesses, or at least a Beis HaKnesses shechorav, because over there he has a lot of room. So you're not who are in every tashmish choil not to do even in the Beis HaKnesses shechorav. Ve'im person l'toicha metzudos. Yeah, metzudos, you need a big space to spread it out, to be masada that it shouldn't get tangled up. So you would use a Beis HaKnesses. You're not allowed to Beis HaKnesses shechorav. You're not allowed to do that because it still has kedusha as Beis HaKnesses. Ve'im shoytchen al gagoi peris. Even on the gag, you're not allowed to use it for a tashmish of spreading out peris over there. It seems that also has kedusha. Maybe they used it while it was a Beis HaKnesses. I'm not 100% sure. Ve'in oisin oisin kampandario. Even when it's chorav, you're not allowed to use it as a shortcut. Shenemar v'hashimoisi es migdashechem, which the Pashat Pshat means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that I'm going to make the migdashim shomim, desolate. But the drash is v'hashimoisi, even when it's hashimoisi, still es migdashechem, it still stays with the kedusha. Kedusha son afkashem shomim. Olu boyasovim, because it wasn't used, so it grows grass. Lo yitloish mipnei agmas nefesh. You don't take off the grass to make it clean. Because we want people to see that it's in a state of a not a good state, that maybe people will get together and raise money and rebuild the Beis HaKnesses. B'pnei agmas nefesh. Rashi says they'll daven that it should get back rebuilt. Tanu Rabbanan. Bate Knesiyos, Ein Beis HaKnesses, Ein Noyagim Ben Kalus Roish. Now let us do Kalus Roish in them. And now the Braise explains what Kalus Roish, Ein Oichlim Behem, not to eat in it, Vein Shoisim Behem, to drink, Vein Oisin Behem. Rashi says it means Ein Miskashtin B'toichoi, or some, okay? Vein Metailin Behem, not to take walks or just to sit around, to do nothing, is Metail Behem. You're not allowed to go into them just to guard from the sun, or you're not allowed to be maspid, on a regular person's hesped, just to use it as a ulam. Aval, what could you do, even though it's miyuchat be'etzem for davening? Koirim behem, you're allowed to learn Torah, learn Chumash, v'shoinim behem, to learn Mishnayos, or maspidim behem hesped shel rabbim. We're going to see later what a hesped shel rabbim means, that the whole tzibur of a Talmud Chacham, that you're allowed to do in the shul. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Imosai, b'yishuvan. This is all talking b'yishuvan. Aval b'churbanon, we'll see in a second, aval b'churbanon, they just leave it, and when it grows grass, so Gemara says, Asavim man who was talking about Asavim? What's Rabbi Yehuda referring to when he says Emisai b'yishuvan, aval b'churbanon, you don't rip out the grass? The Tanakama was talking about doing things inside the Beis HaKnesses. So Gemara says, that we should have continued. After it says, it's supposed to say, or it's as if it says in the Braise, that mechab the noisan, you sweep it, or marbitz the noisan, and put water so that the dust shouldn't, the floor should be mechubed and the dust shouldn't come up. And on that, when do we keep it that it should stay in a good state? Be shuvan. Once it's already destroyed, lalis, you do let the grass grow up. Okay, now comes the interesting Gemara. Omar Avasi, Bate Knesiyos Sheba Bavel, the Bate Knesiyos that were in Bavel, al Tanai he Masuyos. They are made al Tanai, that they can be used not only for davening, but even for some of the tafkidim which we said over here, you're not allowed to do inside a shul. You are allowed to do inside the Bate Knesiyos of Bavel, because originally they were made al Tanai, that they're going to be used for those shimushim. The Rishonim will talk about that. We're going to see in the Gemara further that stories of Amoraim that were in Bavel, that they didn't want to use the shul for other tashmishim and things that you're not allowed to do in a shul for eating and to going in for the rain. And we also saw in the Gemara before that he had even a Beis HaKnesses shechorav, and when he wanted to be zereah there, he had to go and buy it from the Shiva Tovi Ha'ir. So most Rishonim explain over here that Bate Knesiyos Sheba Bavel al Tanai Hem Asuyin, that they're made al Tanai, that if it comes a Shasat Chak, that the Tzibur has to have, they have aniyim and they don't have where to put them, or they have a Talmidim that they have to feed and they don't have where they should eat, that's only B'Shasat Chak. That's where they made the Tanai, that they're going to be used for other things, for other tafkidim. That's how the Rashba explains. So what they're going to see is Bavel al Tanai Heim Asuyim. Va'afal Pikein, and even though it was made al Tanai, Einoyagim Bem Kalus Roish. You're not allowed to do the things that we said before, Kalus Roish, Achil Shti, and things like that. What's Kalus Roish that you're not allowed to do? I'm sorry. Omai Niyu Cheshboinois. You're not allowed to do Cheshboinois in the Bate Knesiyos, even though they were al Tanai Heim Asuyim. Amar Avasi, Beis HaKnesses, Shemachashim B'y Cheshboinois, Beis HaKnesses, B'y Machashim Cheshboinois, then you're also Malinim B'y Asam Mace. You can leave the mace overnight. Someone says, Malinim Sal Kedaitoch. You're supposed to be Malin the mace over there. You're supposed to keep the mace over there overnight. Loisagi the lavachi. That's not enough. If you don't keep you have to keep the mace over there. If you don't keep the mace over there, it's not a good. It's not good. You're supposed to leave the mace in there. Elo lesoif she'alinu by mace mitzvah. And Beis HaKnesses that they're machashav b'cheshboinois. So in the end, the oynish will be that they're even going to use it. That they're going to have to use it to be malin by mace mitzvah. So the Gemara over here says that even Bate Knesiyos Sheba Bavel, which are Tanayim Asuyos, the Rishonim said that you're only allowed to use it b'Shasat Chak. There are Rishonim that talk about maybe this is only the Bate Knesiyos Sheba Bavel, but Bate Midrashos we saw before that they're called Bei Rabbanon, where they made to learn, and that the Gemara and Brachas that it's mavur that they sometimes the Chacham even slept in the Beis Medrash, and they want to say that maybe if it was built as a Beis Medrash that was made for the Chachamim to sit and learn, and over there it's even more of it tonight that they're going to eat there, so they shouldn't have to go home to eat and things like that, and it might be different halacha than the Batei Knesiyos, even the Batei Knesiyos Shabbat. Fine. Ve'ene oisim behem, Amar Rava. Chachamim v'talmideyem mutarim. They are allowed to be neoisim to use the Batei Knesiyos. The Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, my Bei Rabbanon. Why is it the Beis HaMedrash called Bei Rabbanon? We saw before to make from a Beis HaKnesses a Bei Rabbanon, a Bei Rabbanon, a Beis HaKnesses, a Bei Knishta. Why in Aramaic do we call the Beis HaMedrash Bei Rabbanon? Because Beis of the Rabbanon, it's sort of the house of the Chachamim. And this is where the Rishonim say that perhaps this is only in a Beis HaMedrash and not in a Beis HaKnesses. We learned that one of the dinim of cover of the Beis HaKnesses was that you're not allowed to go in b'chama mipnei achama b'kshamim mipnei akshamim. Kiha, the Ravina v'Rav Ada bar Mas, no Ravina and Rav Ada bar Mas, now v'kaimi v'shali sheilta mirava. They were standing and asking a shaila to Rava. While they were asking him a shaila, also zilcha the mitra, a pour of rain came, and Ayla the Beknishtas, they went into the shul. Amri, so they told the people who are around, you should know that Hadai lin on the Beknishta, this that we're going into the shul over here in order to learn, lav mishum mitra. It's not just in order to protect us from the rain. So if it's only because we're in the middle of learning now, and since we're learning, the learning, the shmaita, needs clarity as a yom de istana, as a yom which has a ruach tzafon, as a very as a good day, a calm wind, which is a nice day. In other words, we're going into the shul not just to protect ourselves because we want to get protected from the rain, but because we're in the middle of learning, and it's a tachlis for the learning that we should be in a place where it's not pouring rain. We learned that you're not allowed to be metayel. You shouldn't just walk around in a shul. So if he's going into the shul to call someone, what should he do? He's not supposed to just use the shul. And calling the person is not enough of a reason to go into the shul. So what should he do? So here there's a few gersoyas years ago. Let him stay like a piece of Gemara. Eat Tanahu that he knows Mishnayis, Leibim Masnisim. So you should say either a Hilchas or a Mishnayis, the same thing. You should say a Maimer Halacha. Ikarahu, Leima Psuka. If he knows how to just Tanakh, so you should say a pasuk. Viloi, if he doesn't know, not a Shmaitze, not a Mishnah, not a pasuk. Leima Leili Yanuka, you should tell one of the kids who are sitting in the shul, Leima Leili Psuka, tell me your pasuk, and that way he'll also have learned that pasuk. Inami Nishipurta Venekim. He should sit down, and if he doesn't can't say any Halacha, so even just sitting in the shul is a mitzvah, like Asher Yoshev Veisecha, and that is enough. That it won't be called that he came into the shul for no reason. He did something good while he was in the shul. We learned in the Braita before that you're not maspid a hesped shel yachid, but you're allowed to be maspid in the shul a hesped shel rabbim. Heichidomi hesped de rabbim. What's considered a hesped de rabbim? Mochi Rav Chizdich. You're going hespeda the koiba Rav Sheshes. So according to our guess, it means a big hesped that even Rav Sheshes came to participate in the hesped. So that's probably considered a hesped shel rabbin, that because of the covet also of Rav Sheshes that people are there. So then it's considered a hesped shel rabbin that you're allowed to do in a shul. Other Gersoyas have that Rav Chizah didn't want to say, but he was showing if Rav Sheshes would be nifted, that would be considered a hesped the rabbin. And Machvi Rav Sheshes, he's going to hesped the koi by Rav Chizah. Rafram was a chacham. Asped al kalosei, he was masped his daughter-in-law, the Bei Knishta in a shul, in a Bei Knesses. Oma mishum yukara didi udemisa, because of the covet of me and of the nifter. You don't want to say that it was only for him. Also, kulei alma, many people will come, and that's why it's considered a hesped the rabbim. Rav Zeira, saftela humer rabbanon be Bei Knishta. Rav Zera made a hesped for a certain Talmud Chacham in a Beis HaKnesses. Omar, imishum yikara the day, the day the misa, either because of my covet or because of the covet of the person who was nifter. Also, kuli alma, many people will come, and that's why it's considered a hesped shel rabbim. that you can do inside the Beis HaKnesses. Rish Lakish, Safti Lahut Surbe Merabanan. Rish Lakish made a hesped for a certain young Talmud Chacham, the Shchiach Ba'ardi Yisrael, that he was in Eretz Yisrael, the Avitoni Hilchasa, that he learned Mishnayos, the Chov Dalid Shurta. So Rashi explains that he used to teach Mishnayos with 24 Shurois Talmidim. Which the Rashba says, oh, so then he was a big guy when he was a huge Marbit Torah. So the Rashba says, no, it means that he learned Mishnayos, and Rav Rish Lakish was maspidim b'chov dalid shurta. He was made a huge hesped for this person who learned Mishnayos, who was Tani Hilchasa. Omar, and he was maspid when he said by the hesped, he said, "Vay chosra ardi Yisrael." Eretz Yisrael is losing Gavra Rabba, a great person. On the other hand, the Gemara brings, Hahu, there was a person, Davitoni, that he learned Hilchasa, Mishnayos, Sefra, V'Sefri, V'Tesefta, V'Shachiv, and he was nifter in Bavel. Also, Rav Nachman, some say Nachman by Yitzchok, they came and they told Rav Nachman that this person was nifter, the Sabdeimar, you should be maspedim. Omar, so he said, Heichi naspedei, what should I be maspedim? Hai tzana the moli sifra de chosa, a bag full of svarim that was nifter. In other words, in Bavel, they were very much that he just learned the halachas. He learned the Mishnayos, he learned the Tosefta, but he never had Shimush Talmidei Chachamim. That means he never learned Gemara. He never was ma'ayin to know the reasons of the Mishnayos and to see if there's a Mishnayos which are associated, to know that this Mishnah is talking in this case while the other Mishnah is talking in a different case. And Nachum Bar Yitzchak was mezalzel, and the person who just learned the Mishnayos, who didn't have the Shimush Talmidei Chachamim of the Gemara, and he said, what should I be masped? This sack that's full of svarim. In other words, he just knows the halachas without understanding. And the Gemara finishes off, Tochazi, come and see, Mabin Takifi the Ardi Yisrael. Rish Lakish is called Takifi the Ardi Yisrael. Says why? He was a big takif. even though Rish Lakish was he didn't talk to stam people in the street. Someone who would talk to Rish Lakish in the street, they would give him a halva without Eidim. He didn't talk to stam people. But still, Rish Lakish, when he found someone who learned Mishnayos, he was maspid in B'chov Dalet Shurais because he was so machshavit. The Chasidi Bavel, which is Rav Nachum Bar Yitzchak, who's considered the Chasidim of Bavel, and he was mizalzel to the one who learned Mishnayos. Kanan also, the Mishnah in Ovis says, "Udishtamish b'toga chalaf." This is a member of Hillel. Someone who uses the Keser Torah, chalaf is going to be nifter of Amin Oilam. Tony Rish Lakish, Rish Lakish explained that means even that he uses even someone who's not a big Talmud Chacham in Gemara, someone who just knows Mishnayos. Mishnayos is considered Kisra Shal Torah. So if he uses someone who learns Mishnayos, that's already the Shtamish, the Togel Chalaf is using the Kisra Shal Torah. Omar Ula, and as Ula explained, the Shtamish Inish B'mandetoni Arba, rather, if you have to, so then rather use someone who learned Arba Starim, someone who also taught Arba Starim. Kiha, the Rish Lakish have Azal B'ucha, Rish Lakish was going on a way. Mata Urkuma de Maya came, he had to cross over a puddle or a stream of water. Asa Hu Gavra, someone came, Arkeve Akatve, he put Rish Lakish up on his shoulders, become Averle, and he was taking him through the water. Amalei, so Rish Lakish told the person who was carrying him, Karisa, did you learn Mikra? Amalei, so yeah, Karina, I learned Mikra. Tanisa, did you learn Mishnayos? Shoine? The tough is a shin. Tanisa, so he told him Tanina Arba Sidrei Mishnah. I learned 4 starim of Mishnayos. Amalei, so Rish Lakish tells him, Pasal Tolocha Arba Ture, you were mefasel, you formed for yourself 4 big mountains. V'ta'ante bar Lakish akisvach, and you're carrying Rish Lakish on your shoulders. Shadi bar Lakisha b'maya, throw Rish Lakish bar Lakisha down into the water, and I don't want to be mishtamish with someone like you who learned 4 star Mishnayos. Amar lei, so he told him, Nicha li dashminon, I want to be mishamish you. Nicha li dashminon lemar. Iachi, so Rish Lakish tells him, you know what? If you're carrying me, so I'll already tell you a halacha. The Omar Vzeira Bnois Yisrael Heimechmiru Al Atzman Shafilu Royes Tipas Dam Kechardel Yoshves Aleh Shiva Nekiyim. That's a famous halacha that we had also in the Gemara and Brachos. The halacha is that midoraita, if a woman sees dam, So for 7 days, she's a nida. Midoraisa, in a Torah, that would be that for 7 days she's a nida, whether she's royadam or she's not royadam. The whole 7 days she's tummy, and at the end of the 7 days she goes to the mikveh. Afterwards comes 11 days of achada so yemei ziva, where she sees only 1 day, then only 1 time, then she's a shemer siyum keneged yoim. 2 days also she's a shemer siyum keneged yoim. Only if she sees 3 times, then she's going to become a zavak doila that will need shiva nekiyah. And it says that that even if they only would royas tipas dam kechad on only 1 day, they're machmer as if it would be 3 days in a row. Or Rashi says if it would be so, and they're machmer to have shiva nekiyim even for 1 tipas dam. So he told him that's Bnei Yisrael he mechmir alatzmim. So he taught him this halacha that if he's already been mishamish, I'll teach you some halachas. Now we spoke over here about the megillah of learning even just mishnayos that Rish Lakish was mas with him for b'chov dalet shuris. So we bring Tana de Ve'el, yo, kol ha'shoyna halacha is someone who learns mishnayos. Neither it says kol yoim, but over here it's just someone who learns mishnayos. Move to lo yishu ben olam haba. Shenemar halichos olam loy. Al tikra halichos ela halachos. Even someone who's just halichos, in other words, that he knows halachos. Mishnayos is called halachos because just halachos without reasons. Olam loy, he's ben olam haba, and he's moved to lo yishu ben olam haba. That's we will learn till today. And Bez Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue to see if Bavram will be able to do it or not. That's the Gemara.
Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank all of you.